Welcome back to the Explainer. So if you hung out with me for part 1 of our AIGP Masterclass, you know we spent a lot of time laying down the foundational theory of AI governance. But today we are leaving the theory behind. We're jumping straight into the trenches to tackle the actual, complex, day-to-day reality of governing the AI black box. Let's dive right in. Look, before we completely drown in compliance checklists, we have to address the massive elephant in the room. Why is governing AI fundamentally different from governing traditional software? It's a critical question, and frankly, it's one every single AI governance professional needs to be able to answer in their sleep. To make sense of this pretty intimidating web of global AI regulations, we're going to break this explainer down into 5 quick chapters. First, the unique challenges of AI. Second, principles versus frameworks. Third, the OECD classification framework. Fourth, human rights and hegemonia. And finally, lifecycle AI management. All right, Chapter 1, unique challenges of AI, or as we like to call it, the problem with the black box. Let's look at how the unique traits of AI create immediate, unprecedented governance headaches that traditional tech policies just simply aren't equipped to handle. To govern this stuff effectively, you really need to wrap your head around the fact that AI brings distinct risks. Think about traditional software for a second. It's deterministic, right? It's essentially a fancy calculator. You type 2 plus 2, you always get 4. AI, however, is probabilistic. It's honestly more like a weather forecast. It makes predictions based on vast amounts of data, which means, yeah, it can guess wrong. Plus, once deployed, it evolves, predicts, and learns completely independently of human direction. It's exactly this combo, the heavy data dependency, the autonomy, and those probabilistic outputs, that create such a high potential for unforeseen harm or misuse. And that brings us to the famous black box metaphor. This perfectly illustrates why figuring out legal accountability or pinpointing bias is just so incredibly difficult. When you're dealing with advanced neural networks, the internal decision-making is heavily opaque. I mean, we're talking about a lack of transparency so deep that it is extremely difficult for the very developers who built the system to explain exactly why it generated a specific output. Seriously, if the engineers themselves can't fully explain it, just imagine how tough it is for regulators or courts to assign accountability when something inevitably goes wrong. To make matters wilder, the black box problem is totally compounded by how these tools are actually used, because these highly autonomous systems are deployed at lightning speed and global scale. I mean, remember how ChatGPT hit 100 million users in just 2 months? The risk of them misaligning with our societal goals is hugely magnified. We're actively deploying systems across massive digital ecosystems with zero direct human oversight. This kind of hyper-fast deployment completely outpaces traditional regulatory responses. And since an AI system's impact easily crosses national borders, trying to govern it requires some serious international coordination. So how do we actually fix this? That brings us to Section 2, Principles versus Frameworks, the solution. Let's look at how the global community is actually trying to solve this massive governance puzzle. If you're going to work in this field, you absolutely have to clearly separate these two concepts. Principles, those represent the why. They are your high-level guidelines, the big ethical values we're striving for, things like fairness, transparency, and accountability. Frameworks, on the other hand, represent the how. They are the actual operational guidance, the context-sensitive tools, the actionable checklists you use to drag those abstract principles down into reality. You can really see that dynamic right here. Think of it like a spectrum. On the principle side, you've got established values from organizations like the OECD or UNESCO, setting our global moral compass. But then on the framework side, you have specialized standards, like the NIST framework in the US or ISO management systems, acting as the practical, auditable models. These aren't just generic suggestions. They are the literal blueprints an organization aligns with to measure their day-to-day compliance. Moving right along to Section 3, the OECD classification framework, which acts as a baseline for global understanding. Let's look at one of these foundational tools up close. This incredibly user-friendly framework gives organizations a standard baseline. And why is a baseline so absolutely crucial? Well, imagine trying to regulate something when nobody even agrees on what it is. For an AI professional, this gives you a shared language to classify exactly what a system is doing regardless of where you are in the world. It builds that common understanding you need to inform AI registries, inventories, and risk assessments across borders. The framework basically breaks AI evaluation down into a continuous mini-narrative across 5 really clear dimensions. Notice how it purposefully starts with people and planet to check the human impact first.
Once that's cleared, it moves to the economic context, the specific sector the AI operates in. That environment then dictates the data and input used to train it, which shapes the actual architecture of the AI model. And finally, it looks at the specific tasks and output it generates. Evaluating a system chronologically through these 5 steps ensures you're seeing its entire footprint.
Speaking of the impact on people, let's jump to Section 4, Human Rights and Hudaria, the Council of Europe standard. We're going to dive into a framework specifically built to evaluate those exact human impacts.
So, Hudaria is a bit of a mouthful, but it stands for the Human Rights, Democracy, and the Rule of Law Impact Assessment for AI Systems. It uses a risk-based methodology and the principle of proportionality to assess if an AI system is negatively impacting any of these 8 foundational priorities. As an AI governance pro, you literally use this list to objectively grade the likelihood of risks. Instead of just guessing, you have a structured way to ask, hey, are we compromising privacy here? Are the outputs actually fair? Hudaria basically ensures that while we're rushing toward technical innovation, we don't accidentally trample our core democratic principles along the way.
Okay, bringing it all down to earth now with our final chapter, Section 5, Life Cycle AI Management, the Execution. Let's look at how an organization actually pulls this off day to day. To govern this effectively, you have to build a continuous life cycle risk management and quality system that flows chronologically through 4 stages: design, testing, deployment, and monitoring. I've said it before, but AI is not a slow cooker. You literally cannot just set it and forget it. The risks morph and change at every single stage, so your governance program has to be active at every stage to ensure continuous compliance. What does that look like in practice? It means going way beyond just shipping a product. It means hardcore operational controls. You have to maintain comprehensive documentation, like model cards, to track what the system is actually supposed to do. You've got to conduct continuous monitoring to catch model drift, and actively pressure test performance through independent audits and security red teaming. And crucially, this is a big one, you must have strict policies in place to hit the kill switch. You need the ability to immediately deactivate or localize an AI system the second it starts behaving unexpectedly.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on as we keep building the future of AI governance. We have the principles, we have great frameworks like Hudaria and the OECD, and we know we need lifecycle controls. But as these systems accelerate in autonomy and as that black box grows darker and more complex, are these tools really going to be enough for a future we can no longer fully decipher? That is the real challenge you are going to face as an AI governance professional. Thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of this Masterclass Explainer. Keep questioning the systems you build, keep advocating for transparency, and I will catch you in the next one.